The school year is wrought with peaks and valleys. In August, when students are just returning and all of the hope and excitement of a new year is at hand, it's easy for teachers to feel like that they're starting on a peak. I mean, the time at the summit can last a while as our minds and bodies are fresh and full of energy. Our classrooms are new and clean. We have strategies from summer PVD that we're excited to try out. The school year is a blank slate and we're eager to see how it unfolds. However, and if you've done this a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. As the year progresses and discipline issues or failed lessons or parent struggles or testing or winter weather or administrator observations or endless staff meetings arise, the mountain peak of the first part of the school year can be hard to find from the valley floor. I mean, of course we wish teaching was always gratifying, always full of moments of brilliance. Our classrooms always look like they could be featured on Instagram or Pinterest, that our students would stand on desks and recite poetry like they did on the Dead Poets Society, that we could leave each day tired but satisfied with the work that we put in. But that's not what teaching really is. This work is often spent in the valleys. It can be messy and tiring and dull or painful, uninspired, and sometimes just plain exhausting. It's in the valley that teachers begin to question if they are cut out for this work. We think things like, the teacher down the hallway doesn't have trouble getting students to turn in their work, but I do. Or how about this one? I just can't keep up with all this grading. Or maybe you've thought this before. I don't get paid enough to feel this kind of stress, or I wonder what else I could do with my college degree. And you know, it's in the valley that around 16% of teachers leave the classroom forever. And we can call it teacher burnout or job dissatisfaction or overstress or whatever you want. This job can be difficult and causes too many talented professionals to leave it. However, experienced teachers know that growth only really happens in the valley. And while the mountaintops are beautiful, trees and flowers don't grow up there. Surviving and thriving as a teacher strongly depends on the ability to learn and grow when times are difficult, and having the patience for the moments that make it all worth it. I remember this one dreary February day where I had the unsavory task of giving my students an SAT practice test. I stood in silence for 3 hours as my students filled out these bubble sheets while I looked out the window to see nothing but snow and gray. I remember thinking that this is not what I signed up for. This isn't why I went to college to become a teacher. I became a teacher to inspire my students and help them discover their dynamic and creative selves. And here I am feeling like a babysitter trapped between four walls, watching my students practice a stupid test. I was frustrated. Does it sound familiar? When the students finally finished the practice exam, I let them stand up and stretch a bit. However, one student, his name is Jackson, he just kept sitting there after sitting there for 3 hours. And so I said, hey, Jackson, don't you want to move around a little bit? You've been sitting there for 3 hours. And Jackson just barely looked at me and he said, no thanks, Mr. Muir. I'm almost finished writing this chapter of my book. I can't wait for you to read it. And then he turned back to his notebook and he kept writing. Well, here's a little background information on Jackson. He was this kid who had very, very little interest in school and zero enthusiasm for English class. And that's why I was shocked to find him writing for pleasure after taking a 3-hour exam. For me, it was a shot of adrenaline. It defined why I became a teacher. In the midst of this system that at times can hamper creativity and inspiration, Jackson was clearly inspired. At some point in the school year, something I said or did helped give Jackson the push that he needed to find this gift of his. All of a sudden, the snow outside looked a little bit more beautiful to me. The gray sky made the soft background of the brick walls of our school building a little bit more glorious looking. The students in my class were laughing and talking to each other, and a community formed by my classroom. And I just stood there and I watched Jackson keep writing, and I felt like I made some type of impact on his life. At this moment in time, right after this crazy, boring morning, I was standing on a mountaintop. Of course, I've stood on taller ones since, graduations and visits from past students and college acceptance letters. But this one was high enough to make me okay with going back into the valley. It's moments like these that define why I became a teacher. And if I can remember them and let them transform me and shape my mindset, they're usually the reason about why I keep being one. And so if you are like the many, many other teachers who are down in a valley right now, and you can't see the mountaintops, I hope that you just keep looking for them, because they are there and they can help sustain you as you work down in the valley.